this meeting to order. And I think we'll start, since number 2 is public comment. That's the best place to fit you in, Paul. So
Okay.
Tell us why you're here and what you're interested in.
Well, as many of you are aware, I have been from as time allows and so forth, the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, been serving as a docent up at the Kroll Barn, and it's a wonderful resource and I think a great potential value to the town if more word and more effort could be made. I know a lot of effort's already been made, but the number of people that are participating in that in terms of attendees or whatever viewers is I think unnecessarily limited, and in an attempt to try to improve the situation, people have offered some ideas and they've mentioned things to me when I've been there at the museum, and I've passed some of those along. But basically, I think it was this summer when it was so hot, the area is so decimated from the loss of all those shade trees. The grass, of course, what it is up there wasn't growing because of the severe drought we've been having, or at least the drought we've been having. So I got to thinking that maybe one thing that would be potentially helpful, and as part of the broader plan of trying to do what anyone could do relative to Howard Center in terms of improving things, trying to make it a little bit more commercially attractive and viable and so forth as a downtown area. The Brooks Academy is obviously a major element in that, and specifically I was focusing on the Kroll Barn because of my time there and just kind of living nearby and seeing what's happening there. So I've been spending some time of late thinking about ways to improve the exterior part of the barn. I don't want to get into the issue of the internal organs of the barn. I think those are well handled, and I think there's a lot in the offing that's coming down, which will allow that facility to offer expanded exhibits and so forth. But externally, the situation is very dire. If anybody were to take a hard look up there, you'd see that there's virtually no shade trees left. There's 1 or 2 trees that are kind of bedraggled that probably need pruning or attention from a tree expert that sit on the very western end of the property near the street. The area to the north side of the barn is a low area, sinks down there, and is just totally overgrown with fairly significant weeds now and other kinds of undergrowth that has made that area just a total wasteland. And the area around the barn itself is pretty destitute. It kind of reminds me of Boot Hill in the Bill Hitchcock era. There's nothing there. The grass, of course, won't grow. There's a dirt path that goes up to the barn. But my point is that it's anything but inviting or encouraging to people to, as they're driving by, say, "Oh, what is that museum? Let's go take a look." If it would have been made more attractive visually, landscape-wise, I think it would be helpful to attract people to the exhibit. And I'll leave the issue of the internal parts of the museum to somebody else. But so I've been talking with the Link and his people that did the initial irrigation to the garden club's area there where they have drip irrigation down front. I've talked with Patty Smith with the bond committee. Obviously, I've spoken with David on with your committee. I've talked with Peggy and Marie at the museum itself, or at the academy. And I've kind of worked up just a very, very preliminary sketch of some ideas that I had. But I'm trying to, and I've also talked to the garden club, and I was in fact going to be, I think, meeting with the garden club, but I'm not sure that they're going to have their formal meeting on the 3rd of October. But I was invited to participate in that. So I'm going to spend more time with the garden club, who I think is an important resource here too in terms of potential volunteer help. I've talked to several landscape people, some irrigation people, to begin to get some very preliminary ideas on what might be done and what it would cost and so forth. From a cost standpoint, among other things, I am involved with, as many of you may be aware, of managing the assets that were gift of to the society back in 1991 or 1990 by Bethia Payne. We sold that land that she gave to the society and invested the money, and I've been involved in the investment of that money now for some 35 years. It seems like it's been a long time. However, that fund has grown quite dramatically over that time, and in addition to it just simply building, it's provided annual income to the society to help them assist financially in their operational budget and so forth. So there's some funds there that I think, in terms of Bethia Payne's thinking and what she originally wanted to do with the land when she gave it to the society as a gift, no strings attached, just to use for the benefit and for the improvement of the society efforts. This would be certainly available. However, rather than explore that initially, my thought was I would seek to find people who might volunteer labor, volunteer professional help, donate funds in memory of people and so forth, to try to collect, let's say, $20,000 to $25,000 in kind or actual dollar gifts. My very back of the envelope thought here is we need about probably $30,000 to do the type of work I was talking about. And that's a number that I've just kind of pulled out of the air, applying a few dollars and cents to specific parts of the plan. I know, David, you, according to, I talked to Patty, I guess I told you Patty Smith as well on the bond committee, but I know Patty said that she thought you had prepared a sketch, which at some point I'd like to sort of get together with you, obviously, on.
Yeah, and I can give you the bare bones of that in a few minutes.
Okay, great. Well, what I was thinking of was a plan to, and again, I'm going to just do this very sort of 10,000 foot level. And I want to spend more time meeting with people and getting more ideas and input from as many people as possible. But as a very preliminary thought, maybe putting 2 or 3 shade trees out front, properly spaced maples or something that would be attractive color-wise in the different seasons. Running some sort of a hedge, or having some sort of plantings along the parallel side or the south side of the building. I was thinking of running a maybe like an 8 or 10 foot, probably 8 foot high barn fence along the west side, along Forest Street, to kind of do 2 things. One would be to block some of the noise of the traffic, and also potentially the winds from blowing from the south west, because part of my plan is to take that area that's to the north of the building, between Brian Murphy's house and property and the barn itself, the museum itself, and turn that into an area that could be used for various public purposes. I was thinking initially of if we could improve those trees and the shade that they provide on the west side of the property, for maybe having a picnic table or 2 out there for people that wanted to sit there and enjoy the museum and then have a picnic afterwards or whatever, or just reside there for whatever, passing time. But in the area to the north, where it sinks down there, it would be a natural amphitheater, kind of, where like they do at the Cape Cod National Seashore or other places, build into the side there some benches and potentially turn that area into a available lecture hall kind of exterior, open to the skies. Get some electricity out there so there could be some a speaker. And I think it would serve several purposes, but most importantly, not only beautifying that area over what it currently is now, which is a total wasteland, but it would give more visibility to the programs of the society by maybe they could offer programs during the summer season with speakers or whatever and available to the public to come. I mean, people would be seen attending, it would attract other people, and I think it could be a nice vehicle, a resource for the society to use. So that's basically my overview of what I was thinking. In addition, I guess the final couple of thoughts were, obviously, I would propose that we irrigate the area. There's town water there. People have raised the fact, well, it's going to cost money if we use town water. Well, that's fine, but we can deal with that, I'm sure, in terms of the amount of cost and so forth we'll incur with that. But I'd have irrigation and actually seed areas around the barn and put in a brick walk from the existing parking lot up to the building and down to the speaking area, sort of auditorium, forum, or whatever you want to call it, and trying to put prices on those 7 or 8 different components with the shade trees, the brick walkway, the hedgerows, the fencing, picnic tables, steps and the seating, and grass and irrigation, electricity. I have a budget of about $35,000.
So Paul, if I may,
I stand.
Can we?
I'm more than willing to be kind of the point person in terms of finding the people who would be willing to donate or contribute to this effort, as well as assistance in putting together a landscape sketch and so forth, a total plan.
Okay, if I may, I'd like to start getting some reaction. Let me jump in first. Janet or Peg or Sandy, any of you first before I add my comments?
Debbie's here also, by the way.
Hello, Debbie. You're caller number 1 on our screen.
Okay, just wanted to let you know who I am.
You can't see any of us, can you?
No, and thankfully you can't see me.
No, I was going to say, you're not missing anything. Okay, so any reaction to Paul's comments first? What I was going to say is a lot of ways things happen when anybody shows some energy to get it done. So I think you've got some very good ideas there. I think it's a good start, and I think we should applaud your efforts and work with you to do something. I think the idea of making a more attractive space for people to see things, is very good. Janet?
I think it's a great idea. And I like the idea of the brick walk, especially because it integrates the barn with the main museum building, because we have a brick walk there. And it would, anything that would kind of connect the two, so it doesn't look like the barn is sort of an afterthought, which of course it was, but it would unify the whole area, I think.
What I think would have to happen, Paul, is what you've started to do is talk to a lot of people. A lot of this is process, in the public sector, everybody's boss, and you have to make sure to touch all the bases with Public Works, Board of Selectmen, whoever uses the property, which is Historical Society, the farmer's market is a big key. So all of those have to come together, and yeah, you should keep going, and we should work with you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the indication of support, and I don't know, I may run into a lot of just dead ends, and I know there's going to be certain people, resistance-wise, I mean, it just change, and that is always tough. But I've had a lot of indications of people who are willing to help, and I talked to 2 or 3 or 4 people whose parents were involved with the society back when my mother was involved. Actually, I was unfortunately haven't been as active as I used to be, but there are people who have been very much involved with the society through the years, or their parents, who might be willing to donate funds in memory of, and maybe we'd leave it to having some sort of plaque at a tree or something if somebody donates money to have. But generally speaking, the reception I've received from the town officials that I've talked to, and all of the folks that have direct or indirect roles with the academy have been very, very positive.
Well, I think we can, go ahead, Sandy.
Talking about raising funds, if you're talking about brick walkways throughout the area, a buy a brick is often a good fundraiser for that.
Correct. That's a possibility of having people's names. You mean on each brick or something?
But everything you've described sounds absolutely wonderful. I think, I can't imagine too much resistance to it from anybody, really.
Another funding source, which we're going to be talking about very soon in the meeting, is the Community Preservation Committee. For a public project, they can certainly look at some portion of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a good idea. I hadn't.
Don't go for it this year because I'm trying to get some money.
Yeah.
What I did back when I worked for the
Since I originally filed a bill in the legislature that created the Cape Cod Land Bank, which eventually boiled into these community preservation funds, maybe there's a way in which I can get paid back for that effort by getting some money from the funds. But
I think you might have trouble making that connection, but a lot of the sort of things you're talking about could be CPC eligible.
Yeah.
It's just one or the other. And let me also mention the work I did for the town when I still worked there was simply a sketch. And I started from the standpoint of parking, because the existing parking lot is very poorly designed. And there are ways to make that work better, to tie in the barn and the Brooks Museum better, to make different use of parallel street, which might even include angle parking. So there's a bunch of ideas there that I could sit down with you or via computer or whatever and go over.
Great. Okay, thanks.
And let me also jump in. I can see everybody's faces, and that helps me see who's going to talk, except for you, Deb. So you're gonna, if you want to have any comments, you're going to have to be a little more persistent about jumping in.
No, right now I'm agreeing with everything. I have a thought, but not. It'll come up in a bit. Well, I guess I might as well mention it now. When we're talking about integrating and all, and this may not be exactly the right time to bring it up, but I know when I am meeting with friends who live in the town and all, a lot of them don't go to the farmers market on Thursdays because they say the parking and just the setup is very awkward, and some of them, you know, they're older, they feel it's dangerous having to cross the road and all. So this is probably not the right time to bring it up, but if we're talking about integrating and making things better, we may want to keep the farmers market set up in mind also.
In my mind, that's one of the main driving forces, because I think Paul's ideas would work very well with a parking and drive-through situation that would work for the farmers market too. So I think the people involved with the farmers market would have to be involved. Paul, all the people you know with the historic would have to be involved. And I think we could make a decent plan for that. Peg, any thoughts?
Oh, let's see. Paul, as you have mentioned, you've been, you put a lot of time in talking to various people. I think eventually they have to narrow it down a bit, because if you get too many people with conflicting ideas, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so to speak. But as I said, I just if you can just narrow it down to whom you feel comfortable working with, and you can differentiate between whose ideas may be way out there and we'd never be able to do, and who's more level-headed, those of us who, have some idea of what we can do, but how to put it into practice, so to speak. Because, I'm thinking a little bit of you, you'll end up being, like a dog trying to chase his tail if, if we have too many people involved with too many different ideas. Am I making any sense at all out there?
No, I guess to make a response, at this point, I'm not worried about being too confused or too many directions, heading in too many directions based on input from too many sources. People that I've talked to have all been supportive. They haven't said, oh, but I think you should make sure you do this, or I think people will react to a plan once we've gotten to that particular point.
Yeah.
But at least in terms of I don't have a group of people standing around waiting to pitch in and add a lot of input during this sort of formative stage. It may be that people will react to a plan, but I think I'll be able to get it to a level where you can present something, get some feedback, change this to that, or maybe improve this height to that, whatever. But basically, I think creating the general gist of the idea, the germ of the idea, is not going to be bothered by a lot of people trying to make points at this stage. And I think once it's kind of at a point where main parties, your committee, the museum, the committee, the society itself, the Board of Selectmen, let's say, once we've got that group in agreement, I think that's very manageable, and I think people will just simply say, well, the powers to be have kind of given blessing to this, the support, or added this point, or whatever. But anyway, I respect what you're saying, and I'll try to be sensitive to that. But at this point, I haven't really encountered a situation where people are trying to pull me here. Well, let's put this in. Now let's add this point. Let's, make it this bit bigger, and don't put in the fence in the back or anything like that.
You simply have to be.
That's my
You simply have to be a magician and get everybody's input and distill it wonderfully into a few action points, and there you go. You're all set.
He
Okay,
makes
I
it
want
sound so easy, doesn't he?
When I dealt with
I can point some very good successes in my career, and more recently some not so successes. So in any case, I want to move us forward. Any parting words before I do?
I just thank you for your time and interest and support, indications of help, and I'll be certainly in touch with you throughout this whole process.
Paul, I'll ask that you touch base with me regularly, and I can get other people involved as needed. And Janet, you certainly have a background that can help provide some input. So let's, any of us, just individually touch base with any of us, and please just keep me posted as you go forward.
I'll do that. Thanks very much again, folks, for your time.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay, and feel free to stay around or not. That's your choice.
Okay. I think
We won't be insulted either way.
okay, I'm going to leave then.
Okay.
Good luck with your efforts.
See you later.
Okay, so long. If I can figure out how to sign off here.
All right. Our next item. We can still see Paul for another couple of minutes. There he goes. We don't have any minutes to approve today because I haven't taken the time to go through. I still have on my email inbox something from you, Sandy, months ago saying, well, thanks for putting up XYZ, but you still haven't done certain other meetings. So Peg, you and I have to talk, and we have to go back over our list. I think we're missing 1 or 2 meetings. Are you doing the minutes for this meeting, Peg?
I am. We'll we'll talk about that under something else. But yes, for today.
Oh, okay. So I don't have anything on that today, but we're going to try to catch up by whenever the next time we meet is. And then I'm moving on to the report on the inspection by the structural engineer.
Yes.
For 6 months due to the pandemic and for I haven't counted the number of months prior to that due to inaction I claim by others at Town Hall, we weren't making any progress on this. However, I tried to jumpstart it again this summer, and my main contact was with the Cape Cod Commission. And their longtime historic person, why is her name escaping me at the moment?
Sarah.
Yes.
Something. I can't think of her last name.
No. What? Okay, I'll think of it. I'll brush off the cobwebs in a minute. But she gave me the names of several structural engineers, and the one who was top on the list was a fellow from up near Salem, Massachusetts, who's apparently done a lot of work on buildings on Cape Cod. I called him up. He said, sure, he'll look at it. And in fact, after some further summer vacations, et cetera, delays, he ended up coming down and doing a visit and pretty much a full day and a walkthrough of the building. He crawled under the crawl space. He had Sean Libby have one of his men do some digging at one point, and he is now writing up a report on his findings. He also had a follow-up phone conversation with the town engineer, Griffin Ryder, Sean Libby, and myself about what his verbally what his findings were. The good news, which I think is the lesser part here, is that the building overall is in good shape. The bad news is that whatever was originally done with a stone foundation and subsequently done with other efforts, including bricks, that apparently are more cosmetic than structural. There were some things done right and some things done less so, to the point that, particularly on the east side where all the paint is peeling, he can point to some points that are the foundation or the bricks are bulging out. This is symptomatic of some other issues that need to be addressed. So while he's saying the building is in good shape, he's saying there is some definite work that needs to be done to shore up that foundation. And when pushed on, well, how much is that going to cost us? $10,000 or $1 million? He said, probably upwards of $200,000. So it's a sizable amount, but it's a manageable amount. And we currently have $130,000 less the about $4,000 or $5,000 that we had to spend to get him down here and to do this work, which to Griffin and Sean and myself seems a surprisingly low amount. But he's finishing up, writing up his preliminary report. I told him, and I think I've got Griffin and Sean's support, there's a CPC deadline on October 30th. I would like to be able to submit something to go for the next round of money. And he feels he can do some form of cost analysis by that point. Apparently, there's 2 steps in what he now has to do. He's writing up a proposal this week, so he says, and I will be pushing on him tomorrow, to do the next phase of that work, which I believe is pretty much a design of what has to be done. And then there's an actual design and funding analysis stage that comes beyond that. And the town engineer could give you a much clearer explanation of what those 2 next stages are. But I do already have agreement from the town engineer, subject to a price from this guy, to go ahead with this next phase. And that's what we expect. And we expect to have an initial report from him very soon. We expect to give him an okay, a contract to do the next stage of work, and to have some information from that in time to submit a CPC application for the structural work. And that's what they told us a year and a half ago was you can't do anything else such as the basement or the elevator until you get the structure taken care of. You know, I thought they were being overly cautious, but basically the structural engineer's findings are such that it justifies what they asked us to do. We still have the problem that everybody in the public sees, which is the peeling paint. We can't really get that done until we get the structure taken care of. Sean and I have debated whether we should try to go for CPC money at the same time. It would be nice to do so. Right now, we don't have the right information to do that, and we're seeing what we can do on that within the next month. So I'll stop there for any comments.
That sounds like great progress.
Finally.
Yeah. I'm also
So
surprised.
what do you want, David? A vote from us to proceed with what you're doing?
I think just a vote to authorize a CPC application on structural work and, if possible, what's the word? The painting. There's a word for that. The lead abatement.
Say that again?
Lead abatement?
Yeah, and to authorize me to pursue an application to CPC for structural work and, if possible, lead abatement work.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, folks.
You probably need to do a roll call in this format.
Okay, that's fine. Janet, your vote?
Yeah, I seconded the motion, so yes, aye.
Okay. Peg?
Aye.
Sandy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Cool. The dates involved are, I will be doing a remote presentation to CPC on October 8th. I'm sure they have a call-in procedure for that for anyone who's interested. I will be writing up something once I get the structural engineer's report. The CPC application is due October 30th, and we have our annual presentation to the Board of Selectmen, I believe remote, on October 19th.
Will you send us an email reminder of all of that?
As long as I remember to do so. Yes.
Okay.
David, just a quick question. There's been a lot of talk over the years, doing structural stuff. Did he mention anything about the building having to be raised up?
He may have mentioned that, but I focused more on the fact that it was going to cost us in excess of $200,000. What? I think there is some talk, though. The architect originally said excavate under the entire footprint. We decided that was too expensive, and we have some rough cost estimates of doing so. It sounds like for them to do this structural work, they may have to clear out some additional area. So it may not go all the way under the footprint, but there may be some further excavation and lifting. I don't have a good answer for you now on that, Peg, but I think we'll know better soon.
Because that has, and Janet can verify this, that has been a concern of the museum board that we would have to be closed for a significant amount of time while the structural work was in progress.
Yeah, it's too bad we didn't know this 6 months ago during COVID. And I was thinking the same thing though, that if they have to lift the building in order to fix what they're talking about, maybe that's the opportunity to do further excavation and go down deeper so that we actually have a usable basement.
As far as timing, I mean, he said nothing's going to happen to the building right away in a negative sense. This is just happening over time. So if we get the funding, then we can work out the time of year.
Yeah, when you're closed anyway.
Right. At least ideally we can. Okay, anything else on items 4 and 5? That includes the possible funding application. Any old business?
I don't know if we would call this old business, but we do have to reorganize. And I dearly would love to get to be rid of the secretarial duties. I've got enough going on at this place now.
Okay, who wants to do it?
I am now the official president. I've got enough going on that unless, I'd rather not.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't anyway, Mr. President.
I kind of had that in the back of my mind too, that maybe I shouldn't. So I'm just throwing it out there for what it's worth. And
I think we have to officially put this on an agenda.
okay.
I don't think we can. I mean, Sandy, you're the expert on these matters, but I don't think we can.
No, you need to put that on an agenda. Technically, we should have done this in July, but at this point, you do need to put it on an agenda.
Okay, I'll do that. So that means we are going to have another meeting fairly soon, just to take care of that. Would anyone else like to do the chair job?
That's a no.
Would anyone like to do the minute taking? Is anyone willing to do the minute taking?
You can split it up, guys.
All right, hey, you and I can
We have some time. We have some time to consider that between now and the next meeting.
Yes, that would be fine. Peg, anything else on that topic?
No, that was it.
The next item, is she there? Report from museum director.
There she is.
What can you tell us, Marie?
Distant,
In this
so
busy year.
apologies. My turn for report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
All right, here, I'm gonna get a little closer to the
And I'll move,
microphone. Okay.
I'll move out.
Turn this a little. Hi. I've been here the whole time. I'm just, over here.
I thought I
so-
saw your shoulder.
Good. Well, that's good. At least you knew I hadn't, disappeared somewhere in a tropical beach when you meeting. I wish. No. So I'm just gonna give a brief summary of what's been going on since our last meeting, which was several months ago. We were originally planning to open the barn and Brooks Academy at the end of June. That did not happen as the museum was a phase 3 institution, so we were not actually allowed to open until mid-July. We had to cancel or postpone most of our events from March through September, including various fundraising activities such as the antique show, the decoy appraisal day, pie sale, and many of our walking tours and programs. But we did successfully open the barn on July 20th because we have that nice open airflow plan going on and the ability to maintain one-way traffic, which we could not do inside Brooks Academy. Unfortunately, we were not able to show any new exhibits to the public in Brooks Academy, although we did plan a 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and women's suffrage, which we still plan to work with that theme for next year, along with a Mayflower 400th anniversary small exhibit on the landing, which was put together, but hasn't really been seen by any members of the public as the building is closed. So the barn was originally open 3 days a week in July and August. Beginning in September, the hours were reduced to just Thursdays and Saturdays, and the closing day for the barn is scheduled for Saturday, October 10th. We did not charge admission, but we were instead accepting donations for entry to the barn. And people had been very generous. We've had, I want to say somewhere around 200 people in the barn. since July, not all at the same time, of course, but anywhere from 4 people on a slow, quiet Monday to, I think we had 18 people at the last farmer's market come into the barn. And we did take contact tracing information as mandated by the state. Speaking of the farmers market, we also had to delay that this year, along with many restrictions that were imposed on the market operations, including limiting the number of vendors for space constraints and only allowing 10 members of the public to pass through at any one point in time, which was a little frustrating in the hot summer days. But as of last week, we are able to have 25 people at a time now in the market. But the market is ending tomorrow. It's going to be our last market of the season, but better late than never. We did kind of diversify a little bit just because so many of the craft fairs were canceled. We opened it up to local producers of goods that were not necessarily farm and produce options, which gave a little bit of diversity to our offerings. We had around 2,000 people in the market this summer. And between our booths there at the market and the gift shop sales online and through the barn, those have been our main source of income this season. We do have our first walking tour scheduled for this coming Saturday, and I believe I'm fully booked as of today with the number of people that we are having on the tour. And I think my count is up to 16. That is it for me. Anyone have any questions or follow-up related to the museum season?
Anyone else? Let me just say, Marie, thank you for hanging in there, and we can hope for a much better next year.
I really hope so. I would love to have a museum to direct, but that's okay. We do what we can. We did adapt. I've been doing some online programming as well, which has been interesting to see with our demographic who has access to some of these virtual, not necessarily events, but programming. So that's been good to see. Kind of do some creative things we wouldn't ordinarily have done, but with the current situation, we've been adapting. I would say we've done a decent job for the most part. We've kept our name out there and shown that we're still active, even though you can't come and see us in person. We're still doing things. So that's been.
I think you're doing a great job of keeping the name out there.
Thanks, Janet. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sandy, Deb, Peg.
All good.
Thank you, Marie.
You are welcome. I'm going to sit back over here, but I'm still here.
Does anyone have anything else?
Now we set a date for.
Yeah, I would like to, I've been writing that down. I'd like to meet on October 28th if possible. I didn't think we would have enough to have another meeting so soon, but I think we need to do the reorg, and I think we need to catch up on the minutes, and I think that'll be sufficient right there. And I may have some new information on the structural information. So October 28th, it's a Wednesday at 9:30 in the morning.
That's fine for me.
Yep, that works. Perfect.
We might make you have to join us face to face next time, Deb.
Definitely. I'll have to get my computer skills back up. I had very bad internet connection today, I think because of the wind.
I think we did very well to have 4 of us on camera and all 5 of us in attendance. I think we should congratulate ourselves. Now, with that having met with silence, is there anything?
I'm trying to reach back with my bad arm to pat myself.
Oh, okay. Is there anything else before I adjourn us?
No bills and no events, I take it?
Nothing.
Nada. Well, thank you,
Nada.
David, for pulling it all together.
Yeah, thanks.
It was wonderful fun.
I'm sure.
All right. So long, everyone. See you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Hi.
Bye all.
Aye.
How do we leave? I don't see a leave meeting. Oh, there it is.